Teysa Karlov versus Brimaz, King of Oreskos. We don't have a turn 1 play. We've opted to keep this hand just in case you haven't noticed already. We will get off to the races with a tapped Godless Shrine, I think. Looks like our opponent isn't making a turn 1 play either, which is fine with us. This is quite a slow and clunky deck. Well, you can have a look at the deck list in the description as ever. But there's some pretty expensive spells in the deck, and we don't seem to ever run into our mana rocks either. Now, do we want to go for... I think Stoneforge Mystic is okay here. We can get into our Skull Clamp, which is an absolute all-star in most decks, but in this deck, where we get double death triggers, Skull Clamp is even better in Teysa Karlov, the Necromonicon. Teysa Karlov, 4 mana for a 2/4. If a creature dying causes a triggered ability to trigger, then it triggers twice instead. And it also gives our tokens Vigilance and Lifelink, so we make use of both those abilities in this deck. Why don't we just go for... We'll get down a Plains, and we'll go for the Skull Clamp. And then it's not likely that there's going to be any destruction magic in a white deck, so I think we're fairly safe not equipping up the Stoneforge Mystic yet. We will instead just get down one of our Afterlife cards from the new Ravnica Allegiances set. This is a 1/2 with Death Touch and Afterlife 1. Pretty much only in there for the Afterlife, although the Death Touch can come in handy. But I have focused more on the Afterlife trigger, not for the theme and the law's sake, but more for the fact that it gives us spirit tokens with evasion. Our opponent is ramping out like crazy over there while I witter on. Out comes Brimaz. The Death Toucher is going to be relevant here. Hopefully there's no means of giving Brimaz first strike or anything like that. I think we just go in for Teysa Karlov here. I would like to equip up that Skull Clamp, but I think getting down Teysa is okay because we can choose to just take a hit from Brimaz if we want to, or failing that we'll get a couple of evasive flying creatures from the Afterlife mechanic. We do have other means of getting tokens, Wormcoil Engine, Ophiomancer, Slumlord, Ogre Slumlord it's called. Oh, and down comes Grasp of Fate. That is the only problem I found with Teysa Karlov, is she is on the more expensive side of things. 4 mana is not typically too bad, but in Orzhov, where you struggle to ramp, yeah, that can be a bit of an issue. I think we will just go in for the... What is this? Oh, Dust Bowl. So our opponent is playing a pretty spiky build. And destroy a creature that dealt damage to you. Brimaz does not have first strike or anything like that, so we will just throw the Death Toucher in the way. And that will replace itself with a Spirit token, and we can Skull Clamp that next turn if we want to. Alright, more lands for us. This is not panning out as well as I would like. Yeah, I think we just go for a Skull Clamp here. Should have swung in first, but hopefully we won't just lose by 2 life. Okay, Demonic Tutor goes incredibly well with Bloodghast, or the Skull Clamp goes very well with Bloodghast, I should say, especially when we have fetches in hand. So why don't we go for Bloodghast? Won't be able to equip it this turn, so I think we'll save the landfall trigger for next turn. And we'll get out Bloodghast next turn. Our opponent can swing into Stoneforge Mystic to give us some card draw if they want to. But this is a little combination that I play in a lot of Reanimator style decks. There's no reanimation in this deck really. but I use this in the Scarab Guard and a couple of other decks. I think maybe the original Teysa Orzhov Scion, I think I play it in that as well actually. Bloodghast comes back from the graveyard on landfall, which goes really well with Skull Clamp because it is a 2-1 that dies instantly to Skull Clamp. See if our opponent decides they want to swing in at us here. Hopefully we can start drawing things other than lands. And they are going to come in at us. We don't care about Stoneforge Mystic being in play. So that can go straight into the bin. And Skull Clamp does a hell of a lot of work on its own without Teysa in play. We get into Vampiric Tutor, which can take us into Toxic Deluge. So if we go Bloodghast, don't think we can draw into Toxic Deluge this turn. But we can get into Bloodghast. Yeah, so if we go Vampiric Tutor and put the... well, we might as well put Damnation on top. Because we're not... or Austere Command, maybe? Austere Command will get rid of our Skull Clamp, but it would really hurt our opponent as well. Yeah, I think Austere Command is the intelligent play here. So we'll go for Austere Command. And then we will equip the Skull Clamp to Bloodghast. That will draw us 2 cards, including the Austere Command we threw on top. And then we will get down our Scrubland. That will trigger Bloodghast. And then we need to decide if we want to Spawning Pit or Skull Clamp. I think we can go for Spawning Pit here. And then, yeah, we'll pass it over to our opponent. Brimaz, King of Oreskos, is a Vigilance. I don't know what it normally is. Does it tell me? It's normally a 3-4. With Vigilance for 3 mana. When it attacks, you get a 1-1 white cat soldier token with Vigilance that's attacking. Getting down another Anthem. We're going to get down a lot of damage here. Whenever it blocks, you also get a Vigilance cat. That is blocking that creature that Brimaz also blocks. They are currently on 3 Anthem effects in Field Marshal, Glorious Anthem and Spear of Heliod. So if we decide to wipe the board of creatures and artifacts, well, I'm glad we got down the Spawning Pit now, because we can keep Bloodghast from being put back into our library with Unexpectedly Absent. It can't block anyway, so it doesn't matter if it's on the field or not. We could just have gotten an extra Skull Clamp trigger next turn if that had stayed in play. And down comes a free 4-4 first striking Vigilance cat for our opponent. Only 1 card left in hand though, so they have vomited their hand onto the board. And I'm not sure they can easily cast Brimaz again once we use our Austere Command. Now then, why don't we go straight in for our Austere Command here. That is 6 mana, and we need to make sure that we do this correctly. We want all artifacts and all creatures 3 or less. Actually, do we want to... I think we want to Skull Clamp the Bloodghast first, don't we? Yeah, we'll Skull Clamp Bloodghast first, because Bloodghast, the Skull Clamp even, is about to be destroyed. Unfortunately. And there we go, draw a few more cards there, and now we will go for artifacts and everything else. There we go. And now hopefully our opponent is going to struggle greatly on getting down Brimaz again. we do have an unlimited hand size thanks to Reliquary Tower. And now I'm hoping that we can get to a point where we're recasting Teysa Karlov. It will cost us 6 mana to do so. And this is... yeah, that's just a 4-2. It needs to attack with 2 other creatures to gain Battalion and Flying. Our opponent can't Dust Bowl either, thankfully. We'll get into... I think we want to ramp a little bit more, so we'll go in for the Felwar Stone. Ophiomancer will block this nicely. Or do we just want Requiem Angel out? I don't think it's a terrible idea to get down Requiem Angel, actually, just because it's such an expensive spell. And we can hopefully start making use of that very soon. And then even if our opponent does get down their commander and a means of triggering Battalion on this thing, we'll still be able to block it with Requiem Angel. We will use Bloodghast's ability. It's not as useful when Skull Clamp isn't in play anymore, but it is a sacrifice target that can get us some death triggers. Okay, that will go for Felwar Stone. I'd rather it was going for that than Skull Clamp, so that's an unlucky top deck from our opponent. Unlucky that they didn't get into that sooner. And they opt not to swing in, as you would expect. And yeah, there's Toxic Deluge. We could go for that. Yeah, that's tempting. I'm going to try and save myself some life here, and I'm going to swing in with Bloodghast. Let's get down the Westvale Abbey. And then I'll swing in with Bloodghast, and I assume that it's going to be blocked by the 3-3. That'll put 2 damage onto it. Okay, no, they opt not to do that, that's fine. Had they have blocked the Bloodghast with Leonin Relic Warder, then it would have been down to a 3-1. And then we would have only had to put 2 life into Toxic Deluge. But as it stands, they opted not to go for that wisely. So we'll just go for... and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We can actually go for Teysa first, can't we? So why don't we do that? And then we'll get a few more triggers from the Requiem Angel when Bloodghast dies. No cards in our opponent's hand, so we can freely do whatever we want here. And I should have waited to get the Westvale Abbey down, although... no, I couldn't have done, could I? Because we need to play Teysa and then the Toxic Deluge, so we'd have to make the land drop that way anyway, so scratch that. We will put 3 life in here. And then we will get a couple of spirit tokens here, and they will have lifelink. We'll also get our Felwar Stone back. Not that we can make use of it. Oh, and Bloodghast. I think of Bloodghast as a vampire. Ah, but it is a spirit, so that's why Requiem Angel didn't trigger there, because... oh, another good top deck from our opponent, going for Fiend Hunter. Be intrigued to see what they grab here. Yeah, they go for the Flyer. That's fine. I would, of course, rather they didn't take that, but it's no problem. Now, we have to be careful here because we are down to 3 life. This thing is an Afterlife 2 creature. Can gain Vigilance and Death Touch, but it always has Flying. Unfortunately, can't gain life gain from it. We'll go for... how much do we have? 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 and 10. I think we definitely want Ophiomancer. That will give us a Vigilance, Death Touch, Lifelink Snake. And then I think it is fairly safe to get down Seraph of the Scales as well. And then how about we get our Bloodghast back with Landfall. And then we'll Tithe Taker as well. That will make it more difficult for our opponent to cast spells during our turn. But it'll also give us some more tokens after a board wipe. If our opponent does decide to board wipe. No point swinging in here because Fiend Hunter blocks Teysa Karlov very well. At the beginning of each upkeep we get a Death Touch Snake from Ophiomancer if we don't control one already. That also goes very well with Skull Clamp. We can just clamp the snake that this thing produces, and then at the beginning of our opponent's next turn we just get another snake back. And our opponent decides to scoop. That is very curious. I don't know why. They have a few turns left before we actually start to pile damage onto them, so yeah, that's a real shame that they decided to quit there, but you see the type of stuff that we want to do with Teysa Karlov, and yeah, I'm going to keep playing because I'm not very satisfied with this video, but I will throw it out to you nonetheless because, well, you just have to use your imagination. Bloodghast triggering twice with Skull Clamp, Ophiomancer giving us snakes for Skull Clamp as well, and then Afterlife triggering a couple of times here, gives us lots of spirits so we can even survive board wipes. But yeah, that's Teysa Karlov. I will persevere and try and get you another game. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.